All right, well, welcome to our next video. This one, I've been looking forward to this one. This video, we're going to be talking about godly sexuality if you're married. Now, we talked about godly sexuality if you're single in the last video. So this one's going to be a little different. So we have so many different expectations when we enter marriage. What it will be like to come home to someone waiting for us each night. Having someone to share the highs and lows of our day. What it will be like bringing new life into the world. Vacations together, romantic dinners. And what it will be like to have sex every night whenever we want it. Well, after about a month or two of marriage, we begin reconsidering these expectations. Things aren't going the way that we thought they would. She isn't quite as affectionate as she was when we were dating, or even when the first couple weeks or the first month when we were married. She seems to have headaches a lot, stomach aches, back aches, lots of different kinds of aches. She seems to get tired earlier and earlier in the evening. She seems to be on her period 3 or 4 times a month. If sex does happen, it seems to be more geared towards efficiency. Let's get this done because I want to go to sleep. Many men we've trained our bodies to experience sex a certain way. Women's bodies, however, oftentimes experience sex completely different than ours do. All of us, I would imagine, all of us have been exposed to pornography. We train our bodies to experience arousal very quickly by viewing images, by watching videos, which then will lead to masturbating, and then the experience is over. Others of us may have been sexually active growing up. We conditioned ourselves to pursue sexual experiences with young women to satisfy these desires. We seek physical satisfaction, and our sexuality becomes a pressure release valve to us. Now we're adults and married and working who knows how many hours a week. Our day is stressful. We need to de-stress, so we begin filing through our options. We can have a couple beers, we can get lost on our cell phones, we can watch a ball game, we can eat, or find some other form of escape. Or we can get some from our wife when we get home. Inexplicably, she doesn't seem to have the same thoughts. Why? Because her body has not been trained to experience arousal the same way that ours have. This can either lead to conflict or to intimacy if we learn how to appropriately bring our wife arousal. And men, we get to choose the direction that the night goes from here. Husbands, we must understand God's purpose for sex. Of course, we know it's to make babies. As important as procreation is, sex is also designed for us to intentionally please our spouse. God never designed sex to be a physical release. That's not how He designed it. Something I need to do so that I can go to sleep at night, or so that my testicles don't turn blue. That is not how God designed sex. We see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, which we talked about in our last video about singleness for those, or sex for those who are single. We also see this in Genesis chapter 2. Really, really interesting when God tells Adam and Eve that they are to leave their father and mother and cleave together. Husband and wife cleave together. The image is inherently physical. The word cleave has 2 really cool meanings. First of all, the first is we know what a cleaver does. A cleaver cuts in half. It cuts 2 things in half, divides. But what's interesting about the Hebrew word to cleave, it has 2 meanings. It means to divide and then to come together, to fuse together. What a better picture of sexuality that we are able to enter our wife's body as she splits apart and allows us to become one with her. This is the picture that when he says this, when God says this in Genesis chapter 2, this is how it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to work me by myself. It is husband and wife leave parents and cleave together and experience sexuality together. We also see this imagery all through the book of the Song of Solomon. Solomon is so amazingly tender and nurturing to his bride. He is not in that sexual experience for what he is getting out of it. He is pleasuring her. His focus is on her. And if you've never read the book of Song of Solomon, you should, because that tells us how to love our wife. His nurturing, his loving, his tenderness is just so beautiful through that whole book. He is taking time to meet her needs above his own. In meeting her needs, his desires change. It's not what he's getting out of it. It's what he is giving to her. When our minds change this way, we will begin developing more self-control over our impulses, that I want what I want and I want her to satisfy what I want. That's not God's best. That's not even God's thoughts on how sex is supposed to work. Our love for our wife will deepen in richness. Our love life, which we will learn, involves so much more than me having an orgasm. Your sexual desire needs to be pointed at how can you help your wife experience pleasure? How can you do that for her? So if you asked your wife if she is feeling sexually fulfilled, what would she say? Now, we know what we hope she would say, but what would she say? Would she say that you are meeting her needs and your desires? Is your desire for her to experience the most sexual pleasure, is that first and foremost in your mind? If it's not, you're missing the target. That's not what sex is for. It is for us to pleasure her. How much of your focus sexually is on your wife and her pleasure, and how much is on your own and what you're getting? So often our wives are completely disappointed with their sexual experience because we were just concerned about our own orgasm and not hers. Again, not the plan. This is a misuse of the responsibility that we are given as husbands to satisfy our wife's desires. If you are disappointed with your sex life, husbands, it's on you to fix it. It is your responsibility to meet your wife's needs. Don't tap out and go masturbate to pornography because pleasing your wife is too difficult. It's not. It just requires conversation. It requires time. It requires patience, and it requires self-discipline, that you are focused on her, not on yourself. Now, it may require scheduling times together. We just know that Tuesday morning and Thursday night, these are the times we are going to be intimate together. We're going to plan it, and we are going to gear our day focused on those things. Well, that spoils the spontaneity. We can't do it that way. Well, you know what spoils growing together sexually? Not coming together sexually because we were both waiting for the other to initiate. And neither one of us wanted to because both of us were afraid that the other one would reject us. Who wins in that situation? Nobody does. And we go to bed frustrated with each other because it didn't happen. Guys, this is a really, really fun opportunity to obey God. But this requires a vulnerability in us that for a lot of us, this is going to be really tough to do. Because what if I start to try to do this, and try to be this, and then she says, well, that's not working. Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? When we're able to have conversations around our sexuality together, this is how we grow. We learn what is helpful to our wife. That's how we know our wife. That idea in the Old Testament, when it talks about so-and-so knew his wife, that's how this works. I know my wife because I get to know what she likes, what's helpful to her, what is pleasing to her. That's when I am more concerned on her and I'm not concerned about myself. My sexual fulfillment should come as my wife is sexually fulfilled. This is the way godly sexuality within marriage is supposed to work. And we see this in all the different passages that we've been talking about. And this is a really fun opportunity to serve God. Begin having these conversations with your wife on how to be more intentional in connecting with her sexually. Husbands, it's our job to make it happen. So make it happen, guys. So that's all we've got for this video. We'll look forward to seeing you back here in our next one.